Okay, so welcome along everybody to this first of a series of Dicker Data Training Academy on the Microsoft Office 365 product. My name is Robert Crane. For those of you who aren't aware of who I am, I'm an Office 365 MVP, Most Valued Professional, awarded by Microsoft for the past 3 or so years. You can find me on the internet via Twitter at Director CIA. So more contact details and whatnot will be available at the end of the session here. Okay, so just to again confirm that the webinar has started recording and the session will be made available after the fact along with the slides. So if you can't hear me or you can't see me, it would seem that it really needs something you need to have a look at your end, because most people here have both sound and vision. All right, so with that, let's keep going. So our agenda, our webinar sessions, we're going to run these on a regular basis on every Wednesday for the next couple of weeks from 11 to 11:45. So today we're going to look at preparing your customers for Office 365. Then next week on the 10th, we'll be looking at setting up Office 365. And then the following week, the 17th, we'll talk about migration to Office 365. And given that June the 23rd is pretty close to the end of the financial year, we'll see how that goes and play by the end. Play that by ear, but I would say we'll probably give that a miss and then look at doing something again from July. But again, if you want to get more information, if you want to be involved in this and see more topics, please don't hesitate to send that through to us at any stage. Okay, so our agenda for today's session, we're going to look at broadband considerations. We're going to look at the plan limitations, and we're going to talk about the RDS rights as part of Office 365. We'll talk about the different ways that you can actually purchase Office 365. So again, you can get this via a number of different channels. We'll then go over some general considerations, look at some email, some things to think about there. Then obviously one of the big things is files and our data considerations around our files and folders. So, and then we'll have a look at, obviously the other thing is third-party apps. So we'll then have a look at that. I'll give you some takeaways, some follow-ups, and some contacts at the end of the session there. Okay, so let's kick off with some broadband considerations. So the first thing that you need to look at when you're moving to an Office 365 environment for a client is broadband is the number one consideration. In many cases, I see many clients and many resellers not addressing this up front. So the very first thing you need to do when someone comes to talk to you about Office 365 is you need to have a look at their broadband. You'll need to go in there and you'll need to understand what sort of connection they've got and whether it's suitable for what they desire to move to the cloud. So what you'll also generally find is that many customers have never had their broadband connection reviewed for a long period of time. So here's an opportunity for you to go in, do a test, and then basically offer the service to either help them upgrade with their existing provider or potentially swap them across to a provider of your choice. Okay, so again, important thing here is to basically make sure that you look at the broadband, make sure that it has the capacity to achieve what they're after. If it doesn't, this is an opportunity for you guys to go in there. Now, remember that not all clients have, full symmetric connections. They may have limits. Are there traffic limits? Are there, for example, a limit on how many downloads or uploads? Does that mean that once they hit this threshold, there will be then some form of shaping? The most important thing to remember is, don't forget, is now as we move more towards the cloud, the speed up to the internet becomes even more critical. So ADSL is asymmetric, which means the downspeed from the internet is different from the speed up to the internet. Typically, you're only going to get 800K or so around with a typical ADSL connection. So 800K is not a great connection speed when you have lots and lots of users who need to upload and work on documents and do things like that. So again, make sure that you address and identify whether the uplink speed is suitable. Also, there will be times when the current connection may not be suitable. So what I see a lot of customers wanting to do is migrate everything to the cloud. They come to you and they say, we want to migrate everything to the cloud. We don't want anything on premise. Now, that may not be practical simply because the broadband they're able to achieve in their location is not strong enough. They may not be able to get any more decent broadband. However, that does not necessarily limit you from doing some part of cloud migration. So, for example, emails are a very good workload to shift initially to the cloud. So maybe they haven't got broadband that would allow them to do SharePoint or files and folders and things like that. Importantly, the main thing to remember here is that it doesn't necessarily, because they have bad broadband or poor broadband, it doesn't necessarily remove all the options that are available. So if you get them onto the email side of things first, and then basically you can look at upgrading more options down the track. So if they do, for example, have the national broadband run past their apartment block or their office block in a few months, then you can certainly take advantage of that. So don't necessarily rule it out. Go to the customers, speak to them about their options, give them the options. Maybe there is better broadband. If there's not, again, what they're wanting to achieve may have to wait until better cabling is run outside their offices. Again, as I mentioned, those poor broadband can also move some workload. So simple things perhaps like email would be good. Maybe just, Skype for Business, just doing IM and chat may work. Don't forget, they're probably sending and receiving emails now. So again, don't necessarily rule that out because of broadband. You as an IT provider need to have a look and work out what the best option for the client is. One of the other big things I see around broadband is what's the redundancy. Most customers have got one single internet connection to provide service for their business. But as they become more and more dependent on the cloud, what options do they have in case there's an issue? Can we send them to Starbucks perhaps or work from home? But again, maybe they need a 3D router with a 3G dongle in the back of it. So again, have a think about this planned redundancy. Talk to them about these options. Sell these additional options to give the client the redundancy they need. Moving to the cloud doesn't mean that it's always going to be, you're going to have to buy some more equipment and you're going to save some things perhaps on your on-premise, but you're certainly going to have to invest more, especially in your broadband infrastructure. Another point I'll give you is that a poor quality router can be a choke point. Cheap routers are cheap for a reason. This is because they don't have the amount of buffers, the memory, the throughput that many more higher grade routers do. So again, make sure you test this information. This is going to notice this straight away. If you have a poor quality router when you're trying to do an email migration, for example, because you're going to get lots and lots of email boxes and messages moving up to the cloud through a poor quality router, which could end up being a choke point. So again, evaluate the whole broadband connection from the router all the way to the ISP. Now, a rough rule of thumb I would use for a user who intends to move everything to the cloud, which means their files and folders, as well as Skype for Business connections, as well as email, as well as Yammer and all these sort of things, is about 0.5 meg per user symmetric. So this basically means the same down speed as up speed. So if you've got 20 users, you're looking at a 10-10 symmetric. Now, of course, not all users may have this, may not be willing to pay for it. But again, the important thing to reinforce here is as there's more dependency on the cloud, the broadband connection certainly needs to improve. And again, you as an IT provider or reseller needs to work out what is the best option for your client and help them through that process. So again, that's a good rule of thumb if that can be provided to the client. So let's now get into the meat of the product. We're talking about Office 365. Now, most people, most customers I see only think that Office 365 is an Office subscription on the desktop. They think it is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and whatnot on their desktop. But hopefully we all know now that Office 365 is a combination of the desktop services and a number of direct services hosted in the cloud from Microsoft, these being Exchange for email, SharePoint and OneDrive for file storage, and Skype for Business for audio calls, conferencing, webinars, basically like what we're doing here. Okay, there are also other products like Yammer, there are now Delve, there's Office 365 Video, but the big four are Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Skype for Business. Now, What you can do, obviously, with Office 365 is you can buy these in a number of different ways. So the idea here is that you can pick and choose what best suits your customer. So on the left-hand side there, we have the basic business plan. So these are aimed at the smaller enterprise generally and have limited feature set. On the right-hand side, we have the enterprise plans, which again have all the features and basically allow the full range as though they are those same products that were in, say, Telstra, BHP, Rio Tinto, those big companies. So a small company now has access to the same feature set that any large business has. Now, when we start out this option here, we have basically similar sets between our business and our enterprise. So our first starting point is what's called the business plan, which is just the Office apps and some OneDrive storage. And on the enterprise side, we have Pro Plus, which is the desktop apps again, and OneDrive. Now, I'll point out shortly the difference between the business version of the desktop software and the Pro Plus or the enterprise difference in the software. Now, one of the main differences here is that the Pro Plus version comes with access on the desktop, so Microsoft Access on the desktop, whereas the business version won't do that. So again, it's important to know the product so that you can speak to your customer about that. But the first plan is basically the desktop applications as a subscription plus some individual file storage for each user. The next step up is our Business Essentials and our Enterprise E1. Our Business Essentials gives us the cloud services, SharePoint, Exchange, Yammer, all those sort of things directly from the cloud. Likewise with our Enterprise E1. Our Enterprise E1, again, is the enterprise version of these. It includes a number of enterprise features such as Delve and the Office 365 video, which you don't get with the Business Essentials package. Now, if you want the combination of the desktop apps and the cloud services, then you need to look at the Business Premium or the Enterprise E3. So what happens there is these are a combination of the desktop apps and also the cloud services. So again, just pausing and asking everybody to make sure that they do mute themselves. We are getting some feedback here, so let me see if I can find who that is. Okay, so again, request everybody who is on the call to make sure they mute themselves. We don't want to get any background noise. You just go through and mute these people. Hopefully I can find them. Okay, so moving on. Basically, we've got now the enterprise and the business combined in a suite. Now, remember that we can also buy the packages individually. So, for example, that user that had minimal broadband, we can start out with just buying them Exchange mailboxes. We don't have to necessarily buy them the whole suite. We could, for example, just start out with SharePoint and give them a SharePoint portal in which they can access their files and their folders and share that with third parties. So remember, Office 365 is about individual products that can be sold one at a time, or they can be combined into a suite. What you generally find is once you get to 2 or 3 packages, so if you get to Exchange, needing Exchange and SharePoint, then a suite's generally a better option. The other important thing to remember now is that most methods that you purchase Office 365 allow you to mix and match, which wasn't the case previously. So you can have some users who have Business Premium and other users who have Enterprise E3, and you can swap between the licenses as required. You can have some users who have Exchange only mailboxes, and that's all they do, while other users may have Enterprise E1. So you can move up and down and add users as required to their licenses very quickly and very easily. So that flexibility is now available there. And I see this as very handy, especially we see a lot of people who start out maybe on the Business Premium and they want to upgrade, or maybe they start out on Business Essentials and want to include something like Project Online. So now they can do that and incorporate that quickly and easily into their plans. Now, as I talked about, there is a difference between the Office Business version of Office and also the Pro Plus version. So here's some of the highlights. So the first thing you'll notice is the Pro Plus version comes with access on the desktop. It also comes with the advanced Skype for Business client. Now that's the client that I'm currently using that allows me to run a webinar, to record a meeting, to do a whiteboard, to do polls, to have a lobby, to do all those sort of things. So they're the benefits. Now you certainly get the basic Skype for Business client, which is a free download, but if you want the advanced client to give you more control, you'll need to look at the Office Pro Plus version. All of those two products come with 1 terabyte, which is effectively moving to unlimited OneDrive for business storage. You get Office Online, so you can use Office in a browser, and you also get the core business BI features in Excel. Now, where it really starts to vary is if you want the enterprise version of these BI features. So things like Power Pivot, Power Query, Power View are only part of Office Pro Plus. That's becoming more and more important because of the Power BI stack that Microsoft is now has in preview and is now probably going to make available to all Office 365 users. So again, if you want to start working with Power BI, doing dashboards and those sort of things, then you need to look at the Pro Plus version. You'll also see that things like group policy, telemetry, update controls aren't available in the business version. You need the Pro Plus version on the desktop to actually control these applications using group policy. So again, if you're managing a range of desktops for clients and you manage those via group policy, you really need to be looking at the Office 365 Pro Plus SKUs to allow that. Enterprise voice, so that means I have the ability to connect to my on-premise PABX through Skype for Business. And probably the biggest one, which is the most important one to note here, is that RDS rights, or remote desktop or old terminal server rights, are only available with Office 365 Pro Plus. Okay, so what that means is that now you can purchase Office 365 Pro Plus on subscription from Microsoft. You can download that and install that on a terminal server without need to buy any additional media. However, if you have Office 365 Business, the business plans, this is not a license SKU. So if you want RDS rights, then you really need to have Office Pro Plus for those users. You'll notice that the licensing between them is not a great deal of difference, and I think it's real worth the value when you look at it, especially from a management point of view. And remember that Office, you can now install 5 installs on a PC or a Mac. You also get 5 tablet installs, you also get 5 phone installs, and you also get the iPad apps and all those sort of things as well. So remember that it's licensed per user, so each user gets 5 up to 15 installs on their various devices. They will also get access to the latest version when it comes available. Office 2016 is not far away, and all users who have a Office 365 subscription will receive that automatically as part of that subscription. So if we break this out a little bit more and look at all the plans, you'll notice that we have a rough estimation of the annual cost in Australian dollars across the top. You'll notice that all the features that we talked about. Now, if you want the advanced features, especially down the bottom here, if you want things basically like the RDS, if you want things like Delve, Office 365 video, if you want your compliance, your archiving, your e-discovery, your legal hold, information rights management, encryption, you really need to be looking at the E3 SKU. Okay, so one of the message I would give you, it's all about selling the value of the product. Many customers aren't aware of the value that DLP, rights management, e-discovery, unlimited archiving, and mailboxes can provide. So I think it's important to go in there and explain those features to them. If they then select a cheaper plan, that's fine, they made the choice. But I see so many resellers, in fact, making the choice for the customer rather than allowing the customer to make the choice for them. So again, most important in all of this is that you understand the value that all the plans offer and exactly what each plan includes. So again, the focus is to really understand the E3 plan because that's the premium SKU, that has everything. And what I find is a lot of customers generally want all the features that are there and just aren't aware of what they can do and how they can help their business. So again, go in and sell the E3 and all the benefits it provides. So again, really good value there. So let's come talk about purchasing options quickly. You can buy Office 365 via a number of different channels. You can buy it via Telstra, which used to be the only channel, but that has since changed. You can now buy it direct from Microsoft via a website and a credit card, and typically that is the customer purchasing it and putting in their credit card details, which can be a bit of a challenge to manage. You also now, as a reseller, have the ability to purchase via Open. This is the service that Dicker will provide, can provide you all the backup, can provide you all the support to get that out, roll that out into maybe other open licensing plans. The big advantage here is that you control the billing, you bill the customer direct, everything comes from you. They don't have to worry about credit card payments and all those sort of things. The fourth one that is now beginning to roll out is the cloud solution provider. So they're the four mechanisms by which you can purchase it, and in many cases resellers are preferring to look at the open because it gives them that full control, it gives them the ability to manage the licensing for their client in a way that's much, much easier than doing it through a portal or doing it via a direct means. So let's talk about some general considerations here. One of the things that most clients want is they come to you and they typically say, we want everything migrated to the cloud immediately. I think part of that needs to be setting the expectation with them that, no, you probably don't need everything migrated immediately. Maybe you can we start with email, see how that goes. Then we can look at some files and folders, or maybe we look at doing a special project to have these files available to other people. Something like Skype for Business is another good example of something that you can go in there and have minimal impact. But typically, even though the client says they want everything, it doesn't mean it has to be migrated immediately overnight. That's part of the assessment, to have a look at their broadband, what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they're using it, and advise them as the best manner forward, okay? And also ask them about multiple locations. What I find is a lot of customers now are operating out of maybe two places in a city, or maybe have national offices, different states. They may have people working from home. Again, understand where the information is. Where are people accessing it? How do they access it? Are they always on the road? Are they always in the office? Are they always sharing one broadband connection? Maybe people are accessing it from home. Maybe they need better broadband at home to download files and work on that. So again, ask these sort of questions up front. Again, another bit of advice I would have is tackle the low-hanging fruit. So for example, email is generally an easy workload to move. You move your emails, you migrate them, and there's minimal impact generally. There's no need potentially to upgrade the broadband, although you should, but that's an option. Skype for Business is another good option. You can put in Skype for Business. Most businesses have never seen enterprise-grade messaging, and you can show them how to create webinars, how to do IMs, how to do chat, how to share files, how to collaborate better with a tool which is not going to impact their business. So even if they buy Office 365, pretty much you can put Skype for Business in straight away, because it's only going to add the value that they already have. A next big question to consider is, how's the identity going to be managed? Are you going to manage it so everybody's in the cloud, they log into an Office 365 portal, or do you need it to synchronize to their local AD? So you're going to have to look at something like DirSync or Active Directory sync services. How are you going to manage that? Where are users going to log in? Where do they need to log in? What about their devices? Identity is certainly a very big area, and this is beginning to see also tying into the Azure Active Directory. So if you're not aware, for every Office 365 tenant, you also get a basic Azure Active Directory tenant that you can use, and you can look at users, run PowerShell. You can also customize the look and the feel of Office 365 using that portal. But question how the identity is going to be managed. Does it still need to be managed on premise? Again, some things like printers, these old hardware devices, people still like printers. The paperless Office hasn't arrived as yet, so you're still going to need local printers. How are they going to be managed? How's the print spoolers going to be managed? Do you still need group policy? Again, that may mean that a domain controller or some sort of computer needs to remain on-premise to manage these. Again, it comes back to your question around identity. So again, some things may need to stay local. You probably don't need a big hunking server with multiple drives and all this, dual power supplies and all these sort of major things, but maybe some stuff does. Maybe you need a smaller server or something a little bit less power to take up some of the slack there. Important that you show clients the sizzle, the things that most people, resellers I see, just show people the email and nothing else. They don't really show them the benefits of things like Yammer. They're not showing them Delve. They're not showing them Office 365 groups, data loss prevention. All these fantastic features they're getting as part of their subscription are being overlooked by resellers, and these can really resonate with clients as to change their business. I think Yammer is a very big one, and it's a good way for a lot of businesses to reduce the email load and to share information. So again, show these people the product, show them what they can do, give them the ideas. They may not take it up immediately, but somewhere down the track they probably will. And this is again another opportunity for a reseller to come in and basically say, you know what, let us show you how to do Yammer. Let us show you what Delve does. Let's configure, how do you want to do your Office 365 groups? Let us show you how to set up DLP. This is a service you can offer because now these abilities are built into the product. And the final thing I would say here is that agility and functionality always trumps price. Okay, this comes back to the conversation around the E3 SKU and maybe a business premium SKU. I mean, so many resellers seem to believe that clients only want the cheapest possible. The client really wants value. So again, go in there and sell them the value. Show them what the high-end products can do. Show them what the premium products are capable. And map that to a business function. So if a client has an issue about employees who have left and deleted all their emails, well, then they're a perfect candidate for legal hold and archiving and retention and all those sort of things. If they have special needs like health organizations, then again, those features speak directly to those sort of clients. So make sure that you at least show them the features. If the client then chooses, no, we don't want that, we prefer to go with something else, it's not the end of the world. But importantly, show it to them. Help them understand. Again, come up with a sales model, come up with a sales script that shows the benefits of these products. And you'd be surprised how many clients will then be on board and actually see that the premium products are in fact relatively cheap compared to what they're not getting in functionality with the others. So again, focus on agility and functionality rather than price. So let's turn our attention now to conversation around emails. Emails are typically the first thing that's migrated, typically the first thing that people are looking to move to the cloud. Now, do you need to migrate everything? I mean, so many users have accumulated so many emails, but do they really use them? Do they really need to move to the cloud? Is it possible perhaps to archive, the last 5 years or from 2006 backwards and have them stored somewhere locally rather than having to migrate them to the cloud? Office 365 now offers you the option where you can actually upload PSTs directly on your own broadband connection rather than your clients, or coming soon will the ability to ship the PSTs on a hard disk to Microsoft's data centers where you can then load those into Exchange. So again, have a think about this. Do I need to migrate everything immediately when it comes to email? Maybe not. Maybe I archive some old stuff off and then I can put that in later, or I can leave it on premise, or do they really need it? So the less that's needed to be migrated, the quicker it's going to happen, obviously. Ask them questions about shared mailboxes, info at, sales at, are they using shared mailboxes? Do they have multiple domains? Are they got, 2 business names, 3 business names? So many times I see this missed as when they're doing migration. Oh, we didn't realize you had another domain, or one user over here uses this one domain, or they're pulling from POP3, or they're doing something like that. So again, check the multiple domains. Do they have on-premise multifunction copiers that email things backwards and forwards? How are they going to be maintained? Remember now, emails will have to be sent up to the cloud and then out to users. Are they the best options? Is there a better way to configure it? Do you need an SMTP local relay? Again, copiers are a trip over point that many businesses do come a cropper on. Public folders is another one. Office 365 does support public folders. So there is that option to migrate that, but again, is that the best option? How are you going to do it? And again, how are you going to handle that? What are the securities? You've probably never had that revisited to actually see what function they're performing. What about your DNS? DNS is absolutely critical when it comes to initial Office 365 and email. Who actually controls the DNS? Is it the web hosting? Is it the client? Have they logged in there? Have you got access to it? If you need to change the DNS records, which you will have to with Office 365, how is that going to happen? Are you going to change it? Is the client going to change it? Or are they going to send off a ticket to a hoster to get that to change? So again, managing DNS, especially in initial migration, is so important. The advice is generally that you want to take the control of the DNS, or make sure that you've got the login, the password, and that works well before any migration. And don't overlook the fact that many customers have public websites. Okay, how is that going to be managed? How is that going to work going forward? What we typically see is the web hoster takes over the DNS and worries about their website, but then doesn't worry about the emails. So remember, if you're an IT provider, you've got to provide all these services and keep them all functioning, which may be features that are not part of Office 365, but importantly, it's a service that you can provide and manage and make sure that the customer's getting the best option. And DNS is critical when it comes to that. When you go to migrate your emails, how are you going to do this? Are you going to use a manual method, PSTs? You're going to use the Microsoft method, or are you going to use third-party tools, Migration Wiz and others that are available? How long is that going to take? What are they going to look like? Do you have experience? Again, go in there, set up a trial, do a test before the time. Don't be learning on the customer's dime, okay? Migration of all the data from on-premise is always limited. Okay, don't forget the local broadband is always going to be a choke point. If you've only got ADSL and you're trying to upload 75 gigs of emails, it's going to take a long while to do it, right? So factor that into your calculations. Develop a spreadsheet, work out the calculations, plug in the data and say, you know what, this is going to take 4 days to migrate. Many of the tools allow you to do stage stuff and pull things out in the background, but that will have a business impact while that information is being migrated. And going forwards, email I don't think has such a great prevalence. You can use tools like Yammer and Office 365 groups to overcome this huge dependency, this huge need for email, which may not be as productive as possible. So again, have a look at emails as your first workload, but where can you extend it from there? What can we do after emails? What can we do to help the client be more productive? And you know what? Down the track, probably it may not be emails because you know what? Millennials don't use emails. They use Facebook and they use SMS. So you know what? Emails are under threat. So keep that in mind. Show them the tools that are there in Office 365 and help the client appreciate what's there and migrate. So let's move on to files and folders. So after our emails, our files and our folders are our next biggest consideration. How much data needs to be migrated? Client's going to come to you and say, we want it all migrated. But what's all? I mean, really, is it this whole file server? Is it the local profiles? Is it my iTunes catalog? Is it my graphics? What actually needs to be migrated and how long is that going to take? Okay, we come back to the point about archiving. Can some of it be archived? If you've got a client who has big CAD files, maybe you need a local server. Maybe the broadband is just not strong enough to upload and download such large files. Again, Office documents in Office 365 can be viewed online. They do delta saves. They're very intelligent, but you know, CAD drawings just aren't like that, for example. So again, have a look at what the data is. What needs to be migrated? How do they use their data? What's the broadband connection? And again, you'll probably find that not all of it needs to be migrated or can be migrated, which means some sort of hybrid solution may be required. Most of the data will need to be restructured. Okay, putting it into SharePoint is not a drag and drop proposition. Most people's file shares are out of control. They start off with the best intentions, but they just end up as a rubbish dump 9 times out of 10. So really, you should be offering the service to go through that and to get the structure, help people understand what's there, archive what's not, and only migrate the stuff that's needed. Prune, keep it down. You know, we keep information just because we can. Doesn't mean that we should. So again, look at restructuring. Is it better to maybe move this here or create a sub-site that's this rather than dumping everything to one location? Can we break it up? Can we make it easier to access? And what about excuse me, things like file types, the sizes? Understand the limitations of SharePoint Online or OneDrive. There are limits. You know, at the moment it's 2 gigs per file, individual file, but that's being increased to 10 gigs shortly. But that is a limitation. Also, how many files can we put in these locations? Again, understand the limitations and the boundaries that are made available via the Office 365 product, and make sure you're aware of those. And you can run PowerShell scripts and batch files to pull these out, so you see these before they actually happen or cause a problem. So again, good preparation is always a benefit. And most importantly, the file storage location for Office 365 is SharePoint. SharePoint is very, very different from file shares. It is a collaboration space. Okay, there's much more involved in that. If you've never used SharePoint, you need to, because it's such a fundamental part of Microsoft strategy going forward. You need to understand how SharePoint is very, very different, and you need to also ensure that users adopt and use this product and understand all the benefits. They get check-in, check-out, they get version control, they get approvals, they get document routing, they get a huge amount of benefit, but they need to be shown and trained on these tools and to help them adopt the product. Here's another opportunity to go in and provide this first level training, get them started, get them buzzed about the product. If you just drag and drop a large file share into SharePoint or into OneDrive for Business and walk out the door and let the user try and struggle to use it, well then yeah, it's going to be a challenge and they're not going to like that. So you know what? At the end of the day, SharePoint is again one of these most critical products that a lot of resellers I see don't have the skill set in. So you need to skill up on SharePoint. And remember, there's a consideration here between Team Sites and OneDrive for Business. OneDrive for Business is designed for personal storage, okay, for individuals working on individual files. Team Sites are designed for a group of users working together on a file. Now, there are some issues, there are some challenges around both of these products, but you need to understand the fundamental differences. OneDrive for Business is a single document location that you can put files into. A Team Site is multiple document locations, calendar, contacts, access web parts, form services, a whole lot of things. OneDrive for Business is a very limited subset. So again, make sure you understand the differences between these when you go to migration. And of course, we wouldn't be a IT business if we didn't have third-party applications. So we're going to have limitations around applications that aren't Microsoft. Maybe they're an accounting system, maybe they're a manufacturing software. What are the limitations? What can and can't they do? What technology are they built on? If you don't know, well, here's an opportunity for you to go in and spec the product for the client. Who's responsible? When it comes to migration, when it comes to upgrade, who is going to do that? Who do you need to talk to? Do you need to talk to a third-party vendor? Do you need to liaise with them? Or do you take that responsibility on as a reseller and provide that as a value-added service? If you do a lot of, for example, MYOB work, then you can now start selling your expertise in MYOB when it comes to other migrations, when it comes to other areas. So again, don't look at this as a negative. Look at this as an opportunity potentially to add to your own skill set and take advantage of revenue from that. So importantly, but don't forget third-party applications. They can really trip you up. Does it have to stay on premise? Is it a system that's connected to the copier that has to stay on a machine or on a workstation sitting next to the server? Again, make these decisions early. Typically, a client is going to come in and say, I want everything moved to the cloud. They're not going to appreciate that, you know what, some stuff at this stage probably can't do that. So again, that's where an IT provider comes in and provides that opportunity. Now, in all of this, don't forget that we could also migrate to a software as a solution. So if you've got an on-premise accounting system, maybe you can look at, a cloud-based accounting system like Xero or MYOB or Quicken or something. Does that work? Again, you can offer that service to the client, because if it's in the cloud and the provider manages, less work, less things to migrate, less hassle generally. So again, be aware that a lot of these third-party products are becoming directly from the cloud-based solutions. And if they can't, you could always move it to a virtual or hosted environment. Azure or third-party hosting means you could pick up an accounting system, move it to a virtual environment, and then connect via a VPN back to the office. So if the client is adamant they want everything in the cloud, well, don't forget that you have a virtual and a hosted solution as an option. But again, in that case, what's the long-term requirement? This third-party solution, you know what? It really does need to get away from on-prem. It needs more flexibility. You can't have systems that are locked in the old world, because sooner or later they're going to break, they're going to be unsupported, they're going to be very difficult to maintain, and they could impact a customer's business. So now is the time to talk to a customer and say, you know what? We need to start looking at migrating. Maybe not today, but I can help you in that process to migrate through that. So as we come towards the end of our webinar here, let me give you some important takeaways. The first takeaway I'll give you is you need to know the Office 365 plans. Okay, you can basically work with people like Dick. You can call them up and ask them, get clarification, understand the plans, how open works, how to purchase it, all that sort of stuff is very, very important. But at a core, when you talk to a customer, you need to know the difference between an E3 and a business premium. What value does an E3 give? What are the features? What is e-discovery? What is unlimited archiving to do that? Okay, what are the benefits that it can provide? So know the plans. Okay, I've got a link there which you can have a look at. You need to use Office 365. If you are not using it, even in demo mode within your business, you are going to find it extremely hard to sell. The things that I see most resellers not using is Skype for Business, SharePoint, and Yammer. Okay, you really need to explore these. There are free versions. There are versions you can play around with. You've got an IUR generally provided by Microsoft. Use these products, understand them, read up on them, because they are really, really powerful and they are changing the way that businesses work. And customers are screaming out for resellers with expertise on these to help them implement. And again, things like Skype for Business, SharePoint, and Yammer can generally be delivered online without impacting the business at all, anything on premise. So they're a very, very good way to go to the client and show them the power of these options. Next takeaway is create a demo environment. Have a demo that you can try it out and show a customer, whether it's on a dedicated laptop or a hosted environment. I do it on a hosted machine in Azure, for example. I just power up the demo via a browser, show the client, it's got all the files, got all the demo files, got all my links, everything done, close it down, done, walk out the door, and I don't need to take a PC with me. So again, create a standard demo environment with your scripts that you can work through, that you can show people, that you can always go back to on a regular. It's very easy with Office 365. Have a look at the Microsoft Office Demos.com, which allows you to create a pre-populated demo environment that you can show customers. Create a prospecting checklist. So all the stuff we've talked about today. Who controls your DNS? What's your broadband? How many domains do you have? How many email boxes do you have? How much data do you have? That should be a checklist that you use when you first engage with a client or a prospect talking about their migration needs. You can take that checklist and then develop it and then take it to every customer that you have and make sure you get a consistent result so that you ask them the right questions. You get answers that you need to help you price that model. Just don't go in there randomly. It's all about checklists, right? Get in there and be consistent. As I mentioned up front, broadband is always the critical in the shift to the cloud, no matter what they're doing. Clients' requirements, just excuse me for a second. Thank you. The broadband is critical. You're always going to need more broadband. So go in there. It's the first thing you should have a look at. Can we get more broadband? Even if the client buys nothing from you except an upgraded broadband plan, they're still going to be pleased with the result. Okay, so more broadband is always better. Always address that first. Help them understand what they can and they can't do with the broadband they've got and the broadband that they potentially can get. And again, customers want productivity. They don't want products, right? Show them what the products can do. Don't focus on the costing and all the hassle and the technology and connecting all this up and the ADFS and the DIRSync. They're not interested in that. They're interested in how things like Yammer, things like social networking can make their business better and more productive. And this is one of the major things that you can go in and provide to your customers. So again, they are the takeaways that I will give you. And the last one, the bonus one, is sell on value, not on price. Go in and show the value of the E3. Understand the value of the E3. Prove how it aligns to their business needs. Do you need legal hold because you want to retain all your employees' emails forever? Yes, I do. Well, therefore, that means that you should be after an E3 SKU. So with that, we draw to an end of our webinar here. I will throw up the Dicker Data contacts for you. Again, this slide deck will be available. Dicker Data people are in the chat, so if you do have a question for them, I'm sure they'll jump in and answer that. Again, that will be made available to you after the fact. Remember, they're a great source of information, especially when it comes to licensing, open licensing, what the client needs, what licenses work, what technology, all that sort of stuff. Lean on them. Get the information they need. Make sure you've got contact with these people so that you can get the information you need. Okay, some quick resources for you to finish off. If you want to compare the Office 365 plans side by side, there is a website that will give you and the pricing. The Office 365 service descriptions will tell you exactly in infinite detail what each product includes as a feature, as an item. So RDS rights, things like that. If you're ever in doubt, the Office 365 service descriptions are where you want to go. The Office 365 roadmap tells you what is coming to Office 365, and there is a huge amount of features coming every single day, every single week. So make sure that you check in on that roadmap to see what's coming down the track. So for example, one of the things coming shortly is that SharePoint team sites will be increased from a 10 gig starting limit to 1 terabyte starting limit. So with space. Okay, so instead of having 10 gigs to start with, you'll now get 1 terabyte. So that is not far away, mentioned in the roadmap. That's where you learn about that. The Office blogs, great information about everything that's happening with Office, Power BI, all that sort of stuff. Stay up to date with that regularly. The last one I'll point you to is the Office Mechanics series on YouTube, which basically has people like Jeremy Chapman talking through some of the latest advances. You actually get to see the stuff that's coming and the features that are available in Office 365. So that's a great thing to subscribe to and keep on top of. So again, we're at the end of our webinar. Thanks very much for attending. We'll be running these weekly webinars on the next 2 Wednesdays. So next Wednesday we'll be setting up Office 365. Then on the 17th we'll do migration to Office 365. On the 23rd, at this stage, we'll be taking a break to do our taxes and to make sure we've got all our deductions. But again, make sure that you provide us feedback and to Dicker through the email that you were sent on what you'd like to see, what things you'd like to focus on. Again, how we can grow this series and provide you with more information that is relevant on Office 365. And to finish off, thanks from me. If you ever need any information or any questions on any content, you'll see that my detailed email address is in the bottom left-hand corner there. And basically with that, what I'm going to do is we'll call this meeting to an end. And thank you very much for attending.